getting to the bottom of anything, so why would you even try? You should just stop searching for truth. It's a pointless activity. Never gonna get there without truth. All true, elusive.
There's only one reason people do anything in this world. Fear.
Are you afraid? Anybody scared out there? What's happening, Eric? Other people that may be watching this in the future or in the past using some sort of time travel device. Maybe they went to the future from the past. It's late, it's 1:20 in the morning, my time. It's been a very full, long day, at least for me. But it's good to it's always good to get back on here and just say some words out loud. I don't ever have like a massive plan. I did take these time lapses for you. This does take time and energy. Download this material. But then what are we even looking at, right? It's just the blue sky. I do see the power lines. Giving us, power feelings there. Apparently, even just wired power lines are giving off a lot of electromagnetic radiation. If you do happen to sleep directly under or next to any, like I do, then you may also have problems sleeping. That's definitely a possibility there, right? But I mean, in all seriousness, what are we looking at here? It's just blue. We got no clouds on this day, and this isn't from today. This is from the day before, and that's why I gotta just keep getting up and getting on here, because the information, it just gets stale so quickly. This time lapse which I made, it's almost not even relevant anymore, because this isn't what happened today. Oh yeah, because that's what happened at the end of that day. There was this a sort of haze that came through. Yo, Homegrown's here. What's happening, man? We are family. That's a good hashtag. We are family. Homegrown, I love your work. It's good to have you here. Right, we are seeing, this was later in the day, and it did start to settle in. We had a very sort of low-hanging fog that came through, and that's definitely what you're seeing there towards the end. And in general, just continuing this phase of incredibly unseasonable weather. It doesn't really matter where you are or where you're living. Things are weird. I don't see that's I don't think that's too much of a risky statement to make. Things are just weird wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever you have been doing for however long you've been doing it. Things are different now. And you have to look at nothing to understand that, because it's in the nothing. It's in the in-between cracks that these changes are happening without you noticing them. That's the only way these changes are happening, right? Because if it was out in front of your face, well, it's right here. It's up in the sky. You're just not really looking at it. The magic trick is getting your brain to not worry about stuff like this, which definitely, got to give them props to it. You show this picture to any number of people, you're going to get a different response out of them. I actually should start to go show these pictures to normies and be like, well, what do you see? Do you see palm trees? See the speed limit? I see a surfboard. Do you see those tiny little small cells that are there? I can barely see them, right? Oh, skip to the, we'll get to you in a second, mister. Right? I guess this particular module only has the 3. This just shows you how intense this retrofitting is, though, right? This was an original power pole, and now there's all these additional sort of plastic pylons that they've had to add to run the cable. It's an insane amount of cable to set up even one of these small cells. And, just continuing my trail of misery. It really doesn't matter what off-ramp you're on these days in Los Angeles, West Side, Valley, Hollywood. There's going to be somebody begging, at the end of their rope, right in your face, confronting you about it. I guess this is also nothing, nothing new, nothing different. You can look away. You can ignore it. You can also think a lot about it and get really sad and realize that there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. I don't think either of those options are ideal. I think it's important, well, because you got to have compassion. That's the only way we're getting through this, right, guys? We are family. And compassion is key. But also a willingness to look at stuff again, to look at stuff for the third and the fourth time. Even when you thought you did all the math, you thought you got it perfectly. What is the real reason behind the homeless crisis? How has it gotten this bad? With no end in sight, no plan in place. This has always been here, right? This is right across from a police station. These microwaves have been there for decades, I want to say. Do you notice anything else, though, in this decades-old tower? The circles are always radio waves, or microwaves. Often microwaves, and this is, going to be used by the police station to, communicate, do some stuff. People have theories. But did you catch the small cells? They're always there, right? And I think that's sort of what we're being trained to do now is we're seeing them over and over again to the point where you don't realize that it passed through your mind. Oh, that was a small cell, and you didn't really process that information. The same way that, we're noticing the small cell, but the rest of these wires have been here for decades as well, hanging over the street. You don't notice them after a while. It just blends into the landscape. It continues to do damage, but the same way, I'm not this specific guy, but there's been homeless on the street of Los Angeles since Los Angeles has been a city. This is nothing new. It's the frequency and the proximity and the despair that you're sort of, it's a different thing, even though you're looking at the same wires, the same people, same street corners. Things are changing, and for most of the people out there, they're not feeling it. They're not feeling any change. They're just going about their day, watching their lives. I was just having a conversation with a bunch of normies. Most people don't even know about the 5th generation of wireless technology. They don't know it's happening. They don't know what it means. And so, right, they don't even know the basics of it. Like, that we're on the 4th generation of wireless and that this 5th generation is coming. Most people aren't even they haven't processed that information. And they're definitely not going to be noticing these things all over the city. It's going to be news to them, when you explain it to them. Oh yeah, this new generation, they're going to need routers all over. And these routers, they only reach about, 350, 400 feet and are blocked by trees and weather and all sorts of other stuff. So they're going to need a whole bunch of these, and they're actually everywhere already. And I guarantee you 90% of the time the person is not going to know, they're not going to have any idea what you're talking about. Yeah, they may think about faster internet, but they're not going to have any idea. Most people have not even scratched the surface about EMF radiation. As much info is widely available and out there and ready to consume from lots of great people. I was just listening to a great interview with Sophia Smallstorm, which is she's a banner woman for this whole thing. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying if you honestly look at the science and see what's going on there. I also see it as a wedge issue in our community. As with all of these things, it's meant to polarize and send people into different camps. And, right, certain people are going to be more scared. Certain people are going to be less scared. And we're already divided at that point. So, mission accomplished. I don't always get over to the ocean, but I wanted to show you guys this picture. Right after that clear blue day that's turned into milk, and then sort of low-hanging fog has continued all today. We had a very sort of misty, low-hanging, foggy kind of, right? And we are at the beginning of summer here. This is, again, there should be people down here on these beaches. They should be swimming and stuff if this was, the 90s, but it's not. It's 2019, and it's cloudy and overcast and has been raining all spring on the, this whole coast. And that's sort of why I like playing this game, spot the small cell. Where is it? It's hiding in plain sight. It is directly in front of you. I'll bet you that wherever you live here in this country, that you probably wouldn't have to drive for 5 minutes until you found the closest small cell. I know mine is right outside my house, and this is a rural area. This is not. I don't live in the center of Hollywood, right? LA is a huge county, by the way, right? There's at least 12 million people that live here. So it's a very diverse landscape, right? And again, just a lot of ground to cover, a lot of small cells to set up. And I'm saying, with all these people not knowing what's going on, right? I'm the weird one taking the pictures, hanging out the window. Oh, there's another small cell. I almost missed it because it was so well colored. Man, they really color matched the telephone poles on this one. Crush that job. I wonder that's somebody's job, right? Take the picture, try to blend them in. And I was struck today. I was looking up at the sky, and it was like this, and I could hear a plane. You could hear a plane sort of passing over, but this layer can sometimes be so thick that, right, there's no shadows, there's no real light that even gets through it. Which again is good, it depends on the person, depends on their perception. It may set off your alarm bells about holograms and Project Bluebeam and everything in the sky being some sort of elaborate display. Is that true? I think that may be a bridge too far. I always like to find the gray zone, the middle area. Maybe it's sometimes holograms. Parts of it are holograms. Parts of it are real water vapor. Parts of it come out of planes. And that's sort of my mantra. It's more complicated than that. It's more complicated than you ever really want to admit. Is this a military chopper flying to some drop? Is there some very serious thing that happened as this chopper was passing overhead? I caught a tiny little glimpse of it. I'm not sure. It could just be a pleasure cruise, right? Just out for the weekend, little weekend helicoptering. I know rich people like to do weird stuff like that. There's really no way to know. And I think we all have to come to grips with that. That's a hard pill to swallow. You don't know. There's so much that you can't know, and you never will, as hard as you try. I mean, I guess I could get a science team out here. I don't think I'll ever figure out what's going on with my light. Why won't it stop glowing? Why is it still on months later after going for 24 hours? Day in, day out. Batteries are dead. The batteries are dead. The light's still on. What is it, guys? Anyways, let's get into the news. I'm still working on my bumper, so we're just gonna transition over here. News. News. So this is pretty screwed up. Again, lots of words we're not gonna say. We're maybe gonna infer them. talk around them because words are dangerous now. Very, very dangerous to be listened to and to be spoken. Almost more so than ever, right? This person obviously looks very distressed. But we can't know what happened to him. This is all we have. We have this one picture. We don't know what it was like in there. And the number's up to 13. Again, the numbers are just always, they're always here. There's always one or two prominent numbers in every news story. Is that drawing a false conclusion? Maybe. I still feel like I should be allowed to test out thoughts that may seem insane and then to go from there. Can we talk about that? What if the sky is holograms? You know, if it is, then if we never are allowed to think it, then we'll never get to the bottom of that trap. If mass shootings always happen at government facilities, it's reminding me a lot of the one that was in San Bernardino. When was that? 2 years ago. Same sort of bizarre questions. Why did it happen? Was he disgruntled? Who was this person? It's been days now, and we still have no information on the actual shooter. I guess he was apparently taken down in the event, but I've been reading a lot of articles and I can't seem to find any meaningful information. Even his name. Yeah, good night, Homegrown. It's late for me too, but I appreciate you coming by. Maybe we can get you on the show sometime. I'm just seating my pants here, you know. Just, it feels strange though, just like with all these things. 13, 6 injured. And that's another thing, right? It's just meant to divide, I think. It's all meant to divide. I mean, that's going to bring up the whole gun control thing, but it divides in our community as well. Well, did you think it was staged? No, I don't think it was staged. Look at that guy. He was sad. He had the blood. Looked very real. Obviously distraught. I mean, you guys know I appreciate TV and watch a lot of TV. If you watched any TV, you know how good they are at creating illusion now. It doesn't matter if it's what period it is, if it's dragons, if you're in space, if you want to be in the 90s in Washington, D.C., discovering Ebola. Like, they're going to set you right there. They're going to get all the right check boxes, and they know exactly, right? That's the magic of cinema. You put the right elements together, and all of a sudden you're transported to that area with those emotions and those ideas. And all of that discernment, all of those triggers and ideas, that all spills over into this area, what we call true reality or news. I'm losing the dividing lines between these things, really. You know, it's like, when does the news stop and the fiction start? I think that's why they started to put Wolf Blitzer and you know, all of those news anchors. They get the actual news anchors to do a lot of the news reporting in big movies and TV shows. So I guess it seems more real, I think, was the initial thing that you were supposed to buy. But what it does do is blur this line even more, right? Well, Wolf Blitzer was on there reporting about the giant tsunami that killed everybody. He seems trustworthy, right? I saw him on CNN. He's a real newscaster, therefore trustworthy. And I don't want to even get into any of this. I just want to highlight how all of these things, your emotions are going to get triggered, and you're going to be asked to step to one side or the other. When in reality, there's nothing in the world that's like that, where you make a cut and dry, I'm going to choose this or I'm going to choose that. That is not a thing. It's always gray. And that is a big part of, right? If you look into, what's that word I can't say? The guys that build the buildings, but they stopped building buildings and then started to form a secret society and I guess rule everything. But they have this thing, the tracing board, right? And you'll see those checkered, the black and white checkers. And that's on the chessboard and a bunch of other stuff. And that's sort of the concept. If you read Albert Pike, if you look into that stuff, the whole idea is that you polarize things. You put people on one side and you put people on the other side. Things are presented as black and white. Where, then there's a wink and the nod and everybody looks at each other and knows that, yeah, that is a fraction of the story. Not even 1% of the story, that black and the white. Everything else is on the in-between part. And I try to fight against too. I fall into these traps as well because that's what they do. They find out what's going to get on your emotions, and they're gonna get right in there, right? So, do you agree with this decision? Do you agree with this decision? We're seeing a lot with the media companies. Disney's going to pull out of Georgia for their politics, right? You have these big corporations making bold statements, that in effect come down to censorship and like it's not quite censorship, right? But it's making hurting people economically or otherwise for their beliefs and their ideas, and that just in general is pretty scary because I know a lot of people that do weird stuff that I wouldn't do, but I'm not about to legislate, make it so they can't do that thing. Bro, you should not eat fruit roll-ups the way you eat them. It's really weird, and you should just eat it, stop rolling it up and like playing it, putting it in a thing, and then that's weird, We're going to make a law that you can't eat fruit roll-ups that way. Maybe a false equivalent. But do you see what I'm saying? Like the issue, this is not the issue. This was never the issue. The issue is dividing us. That is the main plan and point. Everything that comes afterwards is something else. But if you can put yourself in that mindset, if you can go from there and you can build up your tolerance. Don't let yourself get divided. Realize that these stories are playing on your emotions to get clicks, but also send you... Oh, we got the TV. The TV's starting. We're going to get into a little TV in a second here. Let's blow through these news stories. See, I thought this was interesting because it's with all these things, right? We love the doctors. They help us, and yeah, what would we do without modern medicine? Everybody would probably just be dead, and we'd all have Ebola, or something. But again, with all these things, the more you look into it, you realize that everything is sort of backwards and upside down, and the people that are supposed to heal you, that are labeled as healers, are the ones that are going to actually poison you and bring on an early death. So, right, and their favorite technique is to find people that are vulnerable or that already have sort of a hole in their armor, and then just blow that wide open, right? If you're taking heartburn drugs, there's obviously a problem already, right? There's obviously some sort of diet. I mean, I guess there are some people with acid reflux that comes from other things, but it's mostly going to be a lifestyle problem. And I definitely went through this cycle. I was eating too many burritos and having some heartburn, and then I would get, not these guys, but get some of the other brand, right? And you feel good for like a second, and then your stomach just like devolves into this gross, monstrous, right? It gets much worse like hours later. And that's sort of the point of this whole culture is, slap a Band-Aid on it. And you may get that relief, but what you're not really thinking too much about is the damage that's going in after that, right? And I'm going to be the first hypocrite to stand up and be like, yeah, I drink so much caffeine and Coke. I eat all the junk food. I love it. I love that salty, fried. Oh, it's just the best. I get up at 3 a.m. and just go get a burger. Oh man. But while at the same time, right, you just have to recognize that it's on this brutal cycle, right? And this is just not surprising to me at all that these drugs specifically, not the Tums antacid ones, but these are PPIs, Prevacid, Prilosec, and they do a weird thing and just ruin you, basically. That is a bad thing to take. And right there, but it's only being handed out to people that are already vulnerable, that already have issues, and then it blows them wide open. Thousands of XX deaths. You know, is that per year? Is that per day? What? You know, we need a little more data on this. But are these numbers higher than Ebola? Maybe. From my research, Ebola seems to have killed a total of, I want to say like 20 tops 30,000 people ever. If these have been killing thousands since they've been created, it's interesting to me. Is it interesting to you? And I love language and phonetics and the sound of things. I can't help but notice the similarity between Nexium and Nexium. And these two things that I guess we used to think were good turned out to be bad. Not so much us thinking. We always thought this was bad, but I think the people in the cult thought that it was all right. I mean, interesting article. If it's hard looking into this stuff because Corbett Report had a great thing on this, that the more that we look into the heart of darkness and see the sex trafficking and the abuse and just the blatant misuse of our trust, right? Just taking all these accepting people and just shoving death in their face. We're getting more and more used to that. And that's why, yeah, I'm debating going into any of these gratuitous details, because I think that's another part, in a way of poisoning this community, is filling our brains up with absolutely horrifying things that people most likely have really done. I actually don't have very much doubt that a lot of this stuff in this sex cult was real. The hierarchy, slaves, that one person has a slave or one person has like 8 slaves, and then it's sort of a hierarchy. Then that person is a slave to the person higher up, and that's how they keep everybody in line, right? And they got it all in pictures. This is reminding me of a TV show. Wait, is it reality? It's both. Yeah, and honestly, like I really don't want this to be like a depressing channel or show particularly. Because I think this, I mean, in general, is just an ultra fascinating time to be alive, and I don't want all this doom and gloom to like wreck my personal, journey and enjoyment of this world, because there is so much beauty out there, and there's a lot of great, compassionate people, and you need to find them and spend time with them. But at the same time, it doesn't make me happy to look away from reality. That does not make me happy. And every time I can feel that feeling like I'm willfully looking away, I have to go back and check the numbers again and confront myself with the reality. Maybe that's just weird. But I think, yeah, people that are here listening, they'll probably agree with me. But it's just a brutal number there, right? That almost half of U.S. families can't afford basics like rent and food. I know I'm in that camp, right? There's no way I could support myself completely. And I think most of the people in our generation are, what's up, Dragon? Most of the people in our generation are in this situation, right? Things are just so expensive, and the income is, the gap is too insane for any of us to close, and only the most really well-connected, powerful individuals are still having a pretty good time. Yeah, what do I mean? What do I mean? I'm not sure. I know that this is meant to polarize us as well. It always has, right? The poor people are dumb and should figure it out and just get a job and work harder. But I guess the point now is that even if you had 3 minimum wage jobs, you still couldn't support a family. Does an organization help me with my bills? Nah. Most definitely not. But if the organization was my family, then I guess we could call it an organization. Yeah, no, I'm stunted. I'm completely living off of my parents still, and not for lack of trying. That's why I'm on here so late at night every night, because I am hustling hard in my regular life. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I like interacting with the chat, but it is a little laggy, so it can get a little strange with the conversation. I really wanted to show you this story, but I didn't pay for it. Damn it! I wanted to give you some indoctrination, and I just didn't have the money. I think it's something about millennials only have $8K in their bank accounts. Oh yeah, interest free. I definitely got an interest free loan from my aunt last year. Most definitely happened. Just to the best of your ability, it really is so hard to talk to people out in the regular world. I was just out having a conversation, and nobody will buy anything that I say anymore because I'm just the chemtrails. I said chemtrails. I'm the conspiracy guy. So even if I did have any sort of meaningful knowledge for my friends in real life, they can't take me seriously. They just refuse or don't, or that's how the programming works. Bam. That's the 33 mark. I really want to get into this TV show, but I also really, really want to show you these hexagons, because look at these hexagons. Hexagons surrounding. Hexagons in the ceiling. Hexagons in the walls. It's nonstop. I've almost never seen so many hexagons in one single image. It's the National Spelling Bee. This story I thought was interesting just because they 8-way split the main title. There was no one winner to the Spelling Bee. They say, oh, Snafu Snaps is here. What's up, man? There was no winner. It was an 8-way tie because everybody was just so good at spelling. Hyper good at spelling. And I think that ties into this whole glue macaroni onto a piece of paper and then you're an artist sort of vibe that we've given to this generation, where everybody's just too good and you're beautiful, you're a flower child, and we all deserve first place. We all deserve to share first place, right? But this is the kind of thing. Nothing to see here, right? This image was in all the newspapers. Nothing to hide here. Unless you have eyes to see. That phrase really does get old. Eyes to see and ears to hear. But it really is true, right? Most people will look at this image and be like, fucking spelling bee. That's cool. They were all good at spelling. They don't notice. The trophy is a hexagon. It's hexagons top to bottom. They are surrounded. And you can't see it, right? And I guess that's why I love this game, because it's like, well, what am I staring directly at that I misunderstood, that I missed? There's got to be something I missed. Is space real? I guess the jury's still out on that one. I have been following this story for a very long time, and very curious to see what the messaging is, what happens once this telescope that they have been working on for a decade or more at this point is finally up there and ready to go. One of the most complex things that has ever been created and sent into space, with a huge possibility of breaking down and not working. But I have a feeling like it's going to be like the Hubble, where there's going to be maybe a malfunction, and then they're going to come up with a nice little trick to get it going. And this is the one that's going to show us the aliens. This is the one that can see, it can analyze atmospheres around exoplanets, not just through solar dimming, but through actual imaging of the exoplanets. So this is going to be the one where, right, we're going to get that message. I don't know when that's coming, probably 2022, maybe a little later, but there's going to be news all over the place, heard it here first. Aliens. James Webb found them. They're here. Here's the picture. Thank you, James Webb. You're our hero. All right, let's get in these shows. It's good to see everybody. Scott Rogers, Badger Report. Trying to get a little team going here. Some faked seekers. I don't know. I need a better catchphrase. Snafu's got the good catchphrase. Truth, yo. Snafu crew. Represent. Okay, so tonight, right, the show is about nothing because that's mostly just like a snarky thing. Some guy left a comment and was like, this is the first and last time I'm watching your show because it's about nothing. It's like Seinfeld. And it got me thinking, like, dude, this guy is onto something, because I think that's been my thesis this whole show, is that nothing is where everything is. There was nothing in that spelling bee picture to see, except everything. The hexagons, it's all directly there right in front of you. And yeah, sure, if you see nothing, then yeah, enjoy your programming. Have a good time, spread some love at least. Don't be a jerk. But if we can wake each other up just a tiny bit, why not? Why not? Okay, so I finished the Rain, which is this Danish Netflix show about rain having some sort of poison in it, and that was sort of my initial idea for this episode, because it ends up all being about the black goo, which is, right, you can search a bunch of other YouTube people about the black goo and how that is all over news and media and everywhere. Those images of the black goo, this sort of sentient, possibly alien, just substance that's able to crawl around and sort of co-opt things that it touches and gets into, right? And right, this is the second season. I already burned through the second season, and the first season, it's sort of just a general pandemic show, like, don't touch the rain, we're scared, social conditioning for our coming pandemic, which is probably just around the corner. But in the second season, it gets a lot deeper into this black goo stuff, right? This little sequence I'm showing you here. The disease actually starts to talk to this guy, right? And he's the only one that's able to handle this disease, because I guess his dad made it. Some weird things about the origin story. But like the disease starts to talk to him, right? She wants us to be weak. Shut up! And then he's like fighting with this thing in his head, which is, again, hearing voices and that whole thing. Something people are supposed to do when they're crazy, but this is an actual substance that has got into his body that is speaking to him. Interesting. And right, this thread sort of follows all the way to the end of the season, that it's this battle going on between him and his loved one. That's his sister right there. Him and his loved ones and his team that he's been spending this whole sort of time with. And the disease, the black goo, and we'll see. That's what happens. He decides, oh, Bubba's here too. What's up? Everybody made it. It is late, guys. It's good to see you, Bubba. right? But this disease, that this pandemic is conscious. Yeah, and you remember that Kizzy Cricket? I totally remember that when they found in that sarcophagus, they dug out the sarcophagus, and then they opened it, and then they were like, "Oh my God, this is the worst smell I think has ever been smelled by humans." And it was this black sort of, they said it was sort of liquefied mummies that some energy had got in there, some oxygen had got into the sarcophagus and sort of liquefied those bodies, and that's what they were experiencing there. But right, and that's a mainline news story, and I mean, think of other black goo sort of references. It's really honestly all over the place. What's this next clip? Right, and this is the ultra bad guy, and I want to think about what he says here. Rasmus can't die. Rasmus is the guy with the disease, and Rasmus is the future, right? Because that is another like core part of this black goo, merge with machines sort of element that we're gonna somehow connect with this alien life force, and that we're gonna be more powerful, we're gonna be better, and that there's gonna be sort of a culling. There's obviously gonna be a lot of people that can't handle this level of pure unadulterated bonding with an alien creature. But the people that do survive, those are going to be the strong ones, right? And so they try to cure him. They try to give him a cure and get this disease out of his thing. But obviously, right, it's a sentient disease. There's no way you're curing this guy, Keira Knightley. And so, right, he's happy for a second, but then his girlfriend gets shot, and he gets really sad again, and then the black lines start showing up on his face, right? And that's the other thing about this disease, quote, air quotes, is that this disease is controlled by his emotions and his mental abilities. Wait, weren't we just talking about how powerful emotions can be and how they can get abused, and if you can't keep a control on them, that you're going to end up like sort of wrecking stuff, especially your own mind? It never stops fascinating me how deep the parallels go, how deep the connections are if you're willing to suspend disbelief for a little while. That's what's up. That's what's up. I appreciate that, Bubba News. Trying to get this channel up. Trying to get these words out here. All right, so you're seeing Erasmus, which is, again, an interesting name. Makes me think of Erasmus. He gets really pissed and just murders everybody with his magic black goo. And this is not some other TV show we're talking about. This is so Danish. This is not even an American production, right? But these are still all the same ideas, the same images that we're all familiar with. It's like this grand pantheon, right? And I'm trying to go through them. Consciousness transfer. Here's the black goo. There really is sort of like a list that we got to just keep hitting over and over and over again. Pandemic is a big one these days. Rasmus. Yeah, and so he kills everybody because he's like too in love with his girlfriend. Right? And he's just letting the emotions get the better of him. Right? And he blames his sister for everything. And it gets a little soap drama-y. I really liked it for a while because it was more focused on the survival element. But right, his brother's just the guy starts to go insane. The thing is driving his brain crazy. He turns on all of his friends and family, right? And his sister is forced to shoot him in the back. Oh my God, right? And as usual, focusing too much on the plot. The plot is never important. What's important is the imagery, and the ideas. The plot is what just keeps you around and keeps you watching. That's the delivery method. The actual product that is getting delivered are the biases, the ideas, right? This concept of a pandemic and this concept of a symbiotic relationship between some sort of disease or alien creature and a human being. That is something that is coming for us in the future. And that it's going to be misunderstood, right? People are going to get hurt. And she shoots her brother, right? And you never think that was going to happen at the beginning of the show, but she ends up shooting her brother. But the crazy thing is that, right, that the evil guy was right. He is immortal at this point. He gets shot and the wound just heals up right away, and it all has to do with the black goo. This black goo has brought him immortality, which almost made me think, is that what the Antichrist is going to be when they pull out the Messiah? Is it really going to be some sort of false idol like this, where some sort of black goo immortal person? Because that's, it's all the same signs. That's the last frame of the season. He raises his girlfriend from death. She had an autoimmune disorder and was, on death's door anyways. And he's telepathically able to raise her from the dead. Where have you heard of that concept before? And I just want to mash this up. We're heading towards that end of the episode phase, but I'm matching this up with the Hot Zone, which is running on, I did another episode about that. The Hot Zone is about Ebola, the Ebola outbreak that happened in Washington, D.C. in the 90s. That was based on that book, right? And these are both shows that are running at the same time, both about the same sort of idea. And you'll see even in this show a lot of the same language used, even though it's a real world disease. It's not sentient, they're not trying to say that, but they use a lot of this language that it's evil and dark and conscious in its own way, right? And this is sort of the scene where they all find out, oh, you're going to have to go in and like sedate these monkeys. And the military is heavily involved in this show because it's about the military. And this is just another great moment where they're like, anybody can turn back. They can. You don't have to go in there. And then everybody's like, nah, we're good. We're in the army. Except that guy freaks out. He loses it. But let me get to this next clip because I think it shows what I'm talking about. I thought I had audio.
There will be Super Bowl. It will wipe us out. It's not the monster I've seen before. It should scare you too.
Right, and all this fear.
Super Bowl.
You really got to be aware when people are telling you directly to the face that you should be terrified. That's when you really got to get your guard up.
It's in that building. It's learning. It's evolved. There will be Super Bowl. It will wipe us out. It's not the monster I've seen before. It should scare you too.
It should scare you too. And just to point out my other weird sort of theories about actors and because they're symbols as well, right? If anybody mainlines as much TV as I do, they will recognize this man as one of the major stars from Game of Thrones. This guy, he was very good actor. Very important character in that show, and that show just died. That show just ended, and this is his next role, right? This is going to be the next time that you see this person. And what I keep finding or just noticing is that certain actors, and I'm very adamant about this, I honestly do not think that these actors are aware of the roles that they're playing, of their own personal symbol. They're just happy to get the work. They're happy to get the phone call, go do this is obviously a cool role, and he must have had a good time doing it. I don't think he recognizes what his, maybe, again, with the whole trouble of getting to the bottom of anything. But the fact remains, right? He was a very famous actor on a very famous TV show, and here's his next role. And he transplants everything from Game of Thrones. He brings that all with him into this show. You should be scared, right? And that's sort of what he was doing in Game of Thrones, sounding the alarm, being the voice of reason. And that's what he's doing in this show as well. But right, that's sort of my thesis there. This is about Ebola. This is a totally different show, totally different channel, totally different producers, totally different everything. And we have wall to wall the same concepts. A conscious, sentient, powerful evil that is coming for humanity. I mean, I can't be the first one saying these words to you. That's a fairy tale you've heard 1,000 times.
You see anything, call me. Don't fear.
Just hang on a second.
And this is, I'm almost done with Hot Zone. It's also very, very good. Very good actors. Very good production. Would recommend. Even though it's mostly just fear porn. It's all about just, did we get it? And then all the protocol, putting on the suits and everything. But this is the last scene I want to highlight because I just thought this is nuts. The story goes that, right, there's a bunch of Ebola infected monkeys that are in Washington D.C. in this animal testing facility, and the army's trying to keep it hushed up, right? They don't want the press, they don't want a panic starting. The guy at the CDC, really just doesn't want word to get out, so they're doing everything, off books or whatever. They're all in civilian clothes. This guy was supposed to sit here and wait for the press to show up and see if they caught word or anything. Nothing to see here, right? Again. But the main thing that I noticed in the scene is that we're supposed to believe that then, back in 1995, and always, probably still now, that the military and the press do not coordinate on major stories. That's not what they do. The press goes, they get in their car. They happen to be ultra hot, too, most of the time. They get in their car late at night and they go just snooping around, investigating, looking for the story. Oh, I heard there was something weird. Maybe these monkeys were sick and I just drove down here at 2 a.m. to snoop around. That's what reporters do, And then they do their due diligence. They find a guy to talk to, and then, right, he's obviously with the military. He explains it away, and it's this whole long tense scene of like, oh, well, are we going to have to abort the mission? Like, we don't want anybody seeing that we're there. Oh, well, I don't know, but we got to get the Ebola. We got to get it out of there. Right. And this whole back and forth. And again, from what I've learned, that is just like, it's hilarious. This is a comedy scene. You honestly don't think the press and the military coordinated the Ebola story and that they're not doing it now? Is that your honest thoughts about that subject? Uncoordinated. Because all of these shows are probably uncoordinated too. I mean, who knows how The Rain and Hot Zone ended up with exactly the same messaging and, basic premise and storyline. The facts are different. The plot is different. The characters are different. But if you lift up that whole layer, you're going to see the same. It's a carbon copy. And that's when I think you really start to get to the bottom of nothing. When you realize that just how backwards everything is. Well, I think I'm going to jump off here, guys. It is great to see an active chat. It is great to have you guys just being part of my team. And this is, it's just, if you enjoy the show, I that's good. But honestly, it's just making me feel a lot better to be able to say these things out loud, because when I say these things out loud to people in reality, they just treat me like you're crazy. Shut the hell up with your chemtrails. Can you go away? And I'm like, no. I live in reality. Where do you live? Someplace else, I guess. Keep it real, guys. Watch out for the black goo. And just don't get polarized. If you have to make a choice, Pepsi or Cola, both of those choices are bad. If you have to make a choice between a hexagon and an octagon, which one would you choose? Well, I'm not sure. That's a tough one, actually. You know what? One of my ideas here, I'm going to give it a shot. One of my ideas is to jump back to the auto-tune at the end of the show. Just to, lighten the mood a little bit. We'll see you guys on the next show.